now, after getting hundreds and hundreds of emails over the last 6 months, what are you doing? Why aren't you on the radio? I am going to try to return to radio. In order to do this, I need about $5,000 in equipment. I know a lot of people, they go, oh my God, what are you doing? Shilling out for money, folks. A Comrex access unit for broadband to allow me just to broadcast the audio in a proper stream format in order to have guests that I can actually see on my board, in order to see what the callers' names are or the numbers and go through them, is $2,500 alone. Then I need a dedicated PC tower. I need a couple monitors. I would love to have a compressor mic. I'd like to do web TV and hook in two HDV cameras and, be able to broadcast at least a video podcast after the show airs if we can't stream it live. So, if you do want to donate to me, if you enjoyed the show, you want to see me get back on the air, you can donate from PayPal at JasonIsVoid, VOID, at yahoo.com. Not putting a gun to anybody's head, but if I am able to raise this $5,000, I will get back on the air as soon as possible. If I'm able to do it this week, hopefully I'll be on by November 1st. Who knows? I've raised just a little bit over $1,000 so far, so some people are putting their money where their mouth is. Even my uncle, who I haven't spent a lot of time with in my entire life. My mother's side is a big Italian family. This guy is somebody who is actually the first person to put into my mind any doubt into 9/11. And I'm going to tell that story in a moment. But, back in 99, I met him for the first time, really, other than my grandmother's funeral. And we had gone to Santa Monica Strip. Really nice guy, very independent thought guy. For my grandfather's funeral a few years later, he, on the way to the funeral, said something that shocked me about 9/11. He said, they knew and they let it happen. And I was like, whoa. I mean, this was hardcore at the time. My grandfather had died in November of that year, I believe. So it was literally a couple months, not even, after the event. Everybody was still talking about it. And then he started talking about Oklahoma City being the same way. And he just kind of mentioned it in passing. And I didn't get the wheels turning, but that thought absolutely stayed in my head. So a few months later, when I did start looking into 9/11, I was blown away. And again, we talk a little bit. He recently got a Facebook. He saw that I was going to try to come back into radio, and he's mailing me a check. And I'm just so thankful. Uncle Sal, thank you so much out there for, giving me independent thought even back then. This was a guy that was telling me that high fructose corn syrup and soda were bad for me back then, and we were laughing in his face. Well, we all know now that high fructose corn syrup is death. It is so bad that you're seeing national campaigns on television try to treat people that know like idiots. And when that didn't work, they decided that they were going to change high fructose corn syrup to corn sugar. They're not going to change anything. They're just going to change the name.
Sad thing is, a bunch of people will probably buy into that. So let me just repeat the email. Just make sure people got it. It's Jason is Void. So JASONISV as in Victor OID at yahoo.com. And this ties into a point I've made in past broadcasts about trying to support each other as much as possible. For example, I was looking to buy some of Ralph Epperson's books. I had him as a guest. And instead of going on Amazon.com and it was slightly less there, but I wanted to make sure I directly supported Ralph. I ordered his 2 books, directly through him. So look at it that way. We're supporting each other. Jason, has had a lot of success in big documentaries, and he was on the Infowarrior, which was a very popular radio show. But when it comes down to it, he's just one of us, just trying to just survive in this crazy New World Order corporatist military-industrial complex system. So we really got to try to support each other, if everything, from helping him get his radio show back up to buying from each other, vote with your dollars is basically the point. I mean, just think of the huge impact if we could all just focus on supporting each other, how we would prop each other up. And then not only that, we wouldn't be giving our money to the corrupt, corporatist system that uses slave labor over in China. Giving all our money over to China. Basically, we could actually start supporting each other more and more, and that's really what I'm all about. So
Absolutely. And if people want to support me in another way, you can go and buy hard copies of Invisible Empire or Fabled Enemies over at Infowars.com, or you can send 10 people the free YouTube link tonight and open up some minds. I don't do this for the money. If you saw me, I'm through Skype right now. I'm sure Ed sees me. I live in a pretty meager place. I mean, this is just a normal room. I pay rent like everybody else. I drive a 98 Integra. I do not have dollar bills, gushing out of my pockets. I struggle to make my rent every single month. And the fact of the matter is, if I want to make more movies and I want to do radio, it has to be a dedicated thing. People don't understand what it's like to do 2 or 3 hours of radio a day. You don't just do 2 or 3 hours of radio. You have to sit there, and especially when you have the type of show like mine, you have to go through the news, and you have to keep your pulse on that. You have to read all these articles. You have to highlight what you want to talk about. You have to set up segments, and especially with films, it's even more. It's literally thousands of hours of research, hundreds of hours of editing, and you got to write the thing too. You have to make sure it's coherent. It's not. Everybody thinks it's so easy to make a movie. I can promise you, it is one of the most difficult ventures each time that I've ever taken on, because each time I am trying to up the production value in my films. I want every single one of my films to be that much better than the previous one. And I really feel like I succeeded with this latest one, Invisible Empire. It looks better than anything you are going to see on the History Channel. It looks like $1 million production, and we only put $100,000 into it on a very shoestring budget. But we were really able to accomplish an extremely professional look. And because we have that extremely professional look, more people are apt to sit through the entire movie than just shut it off and say, oh, this is just some kook spouting some nonsense.
Yeah, no, it's a very good looking documentary. Those graphics, and actually, it has this very eerie, powerful feel to it. And I mean, this is eerie, powerful stuff you're talking about. You're talking about, a one world totalitarian, dictatorship, and this collectivist system where they keep pushing the more and more collectivism. Some of my favorite parts of Invisible Empire is when you have clips of G. Edward Griffin, and he is. I bought, actually, after I saw that he mentions his first book in there, Fearful Master. I purchased an original copy of that book, which is great, by the way. But he talks about really uh, the New World Order is a global government based on collectivism, and he talks about collectivism is always set up incrementally, and that's what it is. It's not so much left wing, right wing. It's just totalitarian, collectivism. And like he says, the state is God. And he also has a quote in there I love. It's just so powerful. I'm a huge fan of G. Edward Griffin, but he says the people running this country are determined to destroy it. These New World Order globalists look at borders as a negative. They look at sovereignty as disgusting. There's a new documentary I saw called United We Fall through.
By Dan Dix.
Yeah, that was awesome, man.
Awesome. It's
Yeah.
from the mouths of babes. People that don't understand, Dan Dix and Press for Truth is another great group. In fact, Dan Dix sent me $50 towards this radio deal. Thank you, Dan Dix. Let me say that. And I mentioned on my Facebook that I had seen the movie. I'm not sure if he knows whether I'd actually watched the movie yet, but I watched it about 2 or 3 weeks ago with my roommate, who keeps up on this stuff basically because I'm involved and is very open-minded and has figured out that I'm basically right. And you look at these people, Robert Pastor, Sidney Gottlieb, or not Sidney Gottlieb, Alan Gottlieb, and others. These are the people that actually are helping to create this North American Union, this consolidation of power, New World Order, global government system, and it is out of the mouths of babes. They admit to so much, but then they try to backtrack through doublespeak and say, well, none of it's on purpose, or I don't see how we're going to be able to achieve this global government, even though they're working towards it. And it comes from a bit of a Canadian perspective, but I cannot recommend that film enough. They got the setups they had for those interviews look phenomenal, and the editing is top notch. I give them a big ups over at pressfortruth.ca. They have done a wonderful job.
Yeah, man, that anything, I'm just so interested in anything talking about globalization. One of my favorite parts of that movie is when they go to Mexico, and it seems like the Mexicans were much more well informed about NAFTA, and because they could really feel the effects in their country. We're starting to in America. Don't get me wrong. We're starting to see become totally deindustrialized and basically falling into starting to look more and more like a third world country. But it was so interesting when when they're interviewing just like the everyday people, like a taxi driver, was, just so much more knowledgeable about the North American Union than if you were to talk to your average, drooling slob in America. And it's just amazing to me that they know that, and they talk about globalization and how they're losing their culture. And yeah, I mean, globalization is just it's just getting stronger and stronger every day. And ultimately, they really do. They look at borders as a negative. They are setting up a world government. They couldn't be any more clear. That's what really just drives me nuts is when I try telling people this, and they don't mince terms. They say, well, I mean, sometimes they will try to, they'll use, like they'll say, further cooperation, or they'll use a global governance. But global government is what they want, and then no matter what they say, if they say it's going to be great for the average person, you judge a tree by its fruits. And look at, for example, China. The globalists love China. So let's just take that as an example. Basically, what it is there is you have, the elite and then the basically slave class, what they just have in sweatshops working crazy amounts a week. That's the model, forced. And, this goes into eugenics too. The fact that one-child policy, and they give awards to China. These globalists love China. So people who think they can just brush off, these things we're talking about, the New World Order. It's like, well, do you want to see America, end up being like, like China? That's not as far fetched as you might think it sounds. What do you think about that, Jason?
Well, absolutely. These guys fund both sides of the opposition. And as we point out in Invisible Empire, the United Nations and people like Ted Turner are eugenicists. They are eugenicists. They are talking about population control. They love it when Mao kills all those people in China. If they didn't love it, then why in the world would they allow the Empire State Building last year to be lit up for, what is it, China's 60th anniversary of communism in their colors? We're moving towards that type of a society.
Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible the fact that they could they love China, and then it's just a really disturbing thought to me to see that's where the rest of the world is. It's almost like you look into China, it's like looking into the future, and it's funny because they always talk about hurting the environment and all this blah blah blah, but then you look at China and they're one of the biggest polluters of the environment. So it's just you can't believe a word of what they're saying. They use things like environmentalism as a way of just more totalitarian control. If they can control what people are able to create and how much quote carbon they put off, they can control every aspect of your life. So these are master manipulators, and they control the mainstream media, which is used as a way to just push this false, total, just disgusting global governance. And they control the media. Not only that, they control the military, which is huge. So they have this huge military industrial complex that is just running wild right now. How there's so many wars. How long has the Afghanistan war been going on? Since 2001. And if people don't wake up, I just see more and further decay. But I don't know. It does seem like the tighter the globalist squeeze, it does seem like it is kind of opening up some people's eyes.
I hope people's eyes are being opened as their foots are being put to the fire, as they're making less and less in wages, as the dollar is worth less and less, as these wars continue. While the president again says that the war is over with, even though we have 50,000 non-combat troops in Iraq, a non-combat troop, really? I'm pretty sure they all have guns and still shoot people. It's imagination land. It's semantics. They just tell you one thing while doing another, or change the language. Oh, let's just hire some more private contractors and mercenaries that aren't accountable. That's all it is. It is really the inception of what Orwell talked about in 1984. Black is white, white is black, truth are lies, and lies are truth. And really, these people, I just don't know how. And I want to give some credit here, because I have seen some people speak out against the Democratic establishment after they helped to empower it. AKA, I will give Amy Goodman props right now. I know a lot of people don't like Miss Goodman because she won't come out fully for 9/11 Truth, but she was gracious enough to have Dylan and myself on her program for the 5th anniversary in that famous debate against popular mechanics. She did give us that venue. She may have supported Obama, but that was a mistake that she now admits. And, I saw her on national television last week, and the mainline host on CNN is trying to attack her, saying, oh, shouldn't you just put your differences aside, Amy, and support the Democrats? And president live. So, if you do want to donate to me, if you enjoyed the show, you want to see me get back on the air, you can donate from PayPal at Jason is void, VOID, at yahoo.com. Not putting a gun to anybody's head, but if I am able to raise this $5,000, I will get back on the air as soon as possible. If I'm able to do it this week, hopefully I'll be on by November 1st. Who knows? I've raised just a little bit over $1,000 so far. Yes, that I can actually see on my board in order to see what the callers' names are or the numbers and go through them is $2,500 alone. Then I need a dedicated PC tower. I need a couple monitors. I would love to have a compressor mic. I'd like to do web TV and hook in two HDV cameras and, be able to broadcast at least a video podcast after the show airs if we can't stream it. Gone to Santa Monica Strip, really nice guy, very independent thought guy. For my grandfather's funeral a few years later, he, on the way to the funeral, said something that shocked me about 9/11. He said, they knew and they let it happen. And I was like, whoa. I mean, this was hardcore at the time. My grandfather had died in November of that year, I believe. So it was literally a couple months, not even, after the event. Everybody was still talking about it. Now, after getting hundreds and hundreds of emails over the last 6 months, what are you doing? Why aren't you on the radio? I am going to try to return to radio. In order to do this, I need about $5,000 in equipment. I know a lot of people, they go, oh my God, what are you doing? Shilling out the money. Folks, a Comrex access unit for broadband to allow me just to broadcast the audio in a proper stream format in order to have so some people are putting their money where their mouth is. Even my uncle, who I haven't spent a lot of time with in my entire life. My mother's side is a big Italian family. This guy is somebody who is actually the first person to put into my mind any doubt into 9/11. And I'm going to tell that story in a moment. But, back in 99, I met him for the first time, really, other than my grandmother's funeral. And we had